Hi, my friend, it's Pat Sloan here. Today is our next section of The Secret Lives of Color. So it's red. We're going to do that here a little bit later in the video. I also want to tell you it is textile day, so I have woven some textile things. What? It's all textiles. We're quilters, right? You can't quilt without textiles. But I have a few things that sort of pull textiles together, and I want to give you some options, walk you through the option that I'm doing on how I'm sewing the quilts for Ukraine. So mine has the bottom section done now, and the top 2 rows, they're all ready to put together. And I did a bunch of clips as I was working on this to show you what the process was. So let's take a look. Let me show you the plan I decided to go with. I'm doing the 6 at the bottom, then the 6 at the top. And so what I've done is put a strip on the end, because remember this sashing comes all the way out to the end. That makes the border for this quilt. Got sashing, sashing, sashing on that end, and now this little package is the sashing between the rows. So I need to do 3 of those for the bottom section, and then when I get to the top, this one will already be done, so I only have to do the middle and then the top one. The other thing I'm doing is, while I'm sewing these, I am creating the sets for the jelly sizzle border. So these are all of the half square triangles, so I'm sewing them in doubles to create the little flying geese units, and then I have to create more half square triangles. But I'm doing all this at the same time that I'm sewing this, so anytime I need to stop where I can't keep working on this one and I need to, take it out of the machine, I will sew a set of these, and they are getting done. This is going super fast. What I did now was I have 3 of these sets done. I need to cut more of the white. I have all the blue squares done, but I need more of the white. And now what I will be able to do is sew a row on the top and on the bottom of this one, and then on the bottom of that one. Then I can do this bottom section. So then that bottom half will be done. And this has been a really, really fast way to do it. Well, I spotted this on the fabric as I was working. So it is either manufacturing flaw, which I don't think it is. It looks like maybe something I got on there. I don't know. But what I decided to do was just wait to see where this showed up. I need to cut a 2 3/4 inch strip, and when I do that, that mark is right on the edge, so that means then I can just cut this whole sliver off, like a little 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch of sliver, and that fixes and resolves the whole problem. I probably also need to do a straightening cut anyways, because I've just cut a bunch of things up to here and I haven't done sort of a straightening cut, and as you know, it's sort of, you sort of angle as you go along, so you need to straighten up your edge every maybe 4 or 5 cuts, see how it's going. But anyways, this is going to be a non-issue for me, which is nice. This is what I did. I just went and cut off a little sliver, straightened it up. There's my mark on the fabric. Now, I saved myself really, because if I had seen that mark when I was out here working, which I did see, and had decided, oh, I need to cut this and blah, 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 it's going to be a pain. Instead, I've just kept track. You could have put a pin in there too, to keep track of where it was, and just see how your progression goes towards it, because I lost very little fabric from this, whereas if I had done it another way, I might have had a bigger chunk that wasn't usable. This row down here is sewn with the sashing below and above it. Now this row right here, I can either sew it to the body, to the bottom, and then put the sashing above, or what I will do is do the sashing first, because it's less bulky for me to do these 3 pieces that are sewn together rather than this whole unit to add something to. I try to keep it less bulky whenever possible. So the next step is add this to the top of this unit here of these 3, and then add this section to the bottom section. Then that will mean the bottom half is complete, and I will repeat the process for the top. Bottom half is done. Yes, so the edges that are out, they're all the way out here. You can see the cornerstone and the sashing. This top row is attached to the bottom, which means I have one less sashing to do when I do the top row, because that middle one is attached to the bottom already, so it's one less grouping to do. Here again, I will do from the sashing blocks across to the other sashing. Those are the sashings kind of pinned on the wall there. I'll do the same for the third row. I will do the sashing row in between and above, and then sew this to the skinny row, that to its skinny row, and then those two units together to make the top half, then those to the bottom half. So that is really a wonderful way for me to approach this, because I'm comfortable sewing this much across. It's not too bulky, and being in chunks, it's also less bulky. I don't have those strips of 4 and then a whole big section of 8 with a little skinny section. I've sort of broken it up so every time it's a real manageable section to work with. The last seam across the center, which will have the 2 bigger chunks, and that's the only time I sort of have to deal with that much at once. Secret Lives of Color. We are going to see my block and talk a little bit about red. Red, everything red. Yes, we are finally to the red section of the Secret Lives of Color. So in your book, if you're just new to this, there is a section in the front for each color, and it just gives an overview. The author gives an overview of the color, some history of the color in general, and then lists all the colors that she writes about for this this section. So in what I found interesting, there's a lot of information every time about all of the things, but what I found interesting here was that she said 75% of the country's flags of a country, have red in them. That's a lot, 75%. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Does your flag have a red in it? I know the American flag does, but how about you in other countries? Do you have red in your flag? So the color for kicking off red is scarlet. And there's a lot of information about scarlet. The shade itself, I don't know whether this paper picked up that shade correctly. It's a little bit less red than I thought it would be. Does that make sense? And that's so I will show you what I'm going with. But the one thing I found interesting is the word scarlet was originally a description of a type of wool. It didn't mean color at all. It was the type of wool was called scarlet wool, I guess, and it was dyed red, which then eventually took on the name, scarlet took on the name of the color of red. And there's just loads and loads of information in there about the color red. So what did I do? All right, we are on row 3 now for the layout that I am doing, and I'm going to do the 6-inch block this time because I have the pink one, the last pink block, which will also be on this row. And I decided to go with something like my favorite shade of red. This is it, and this will be scarlet. I think it's probably just a little deeper than scarlet, maybe not quite as bright as what scarlet is, but this is what I'm going with because I want to kick it off with my favorite shade of red. This is it. This is it, true red to me. And of course, it's got the cute little bees, and so I paired it with this green that I pulled from the, like a variety of greens that all have kind of the same tone, and it's a really old piece that has cactus on it. So here's my block. Ta-da! So I really love it. I love it. Now what I want to do is I will go through and pull out the rest of the shades of red. So I will do that and show you next time on the next block all the shades of red that I pulled, and then I'll have it ready to go. Fun, right? It's so fun to look through here. Just a favorite thing ever is looking through. It's looking through fabric, and red fabric, yes. Okay, so now we're going to do a little Q&A related to textiles. I thought it would be really fun to pull some of the questions that I've seen recently here at YouTube and some of them from over on the Facebook community page that related sort of to textiles, the things about textiles. So I have a group of them here, and the first one is fairly straightforward. Came from, I don't have the names for all of these people, but it came from Patricia, and she wanted to know when I'm using my wool pressing mat, am I using a wool setting or cotton setting? And I use the cotton setting because I'm not pressing wool. The purpose of what I'm pressing, is cotton fabric for the patchwork. The wool is just a base underneath. I don't have any problem with that. You might find that occasionally you might get a little scorch mark if you're using a lot of steam on or a high, cotton setting, on your mat. But the mat's just a working tool. It's not your finished product. So that's what I use. I use the cotton setting. Okay, the other one, I've got a couple that have to do with sort of the selvage of the fabric. And the selvage of your fabric is the edge, right? Whoops, sorry. So the edge of your fabric here, that's the selvage, has the writing on it and the dots and all that business. So here's one from my fabric. So I've got, whoops. Yeah, so see it here. So there's a question on what are the dots, and if there are numbers, what does the number mean? And it can be different for different manufacturers, but the basis, like here's one on the edge, and well, I'm just looking at it myself, but as far as I can see, there are no numbers. They don't use any numbers on theirs. Some manufacturers will. So let's say, I'll just hold this up. First of all, you have on the selvage is the name of the company, the designer, the fabric line. They might have a cute note on there, and then there are color images, which are what I'm going to talk about. And let's look at mine. My color images are a butterfly for the birdsong. So all the fabrics in birdsong have those. Instead of a circle, it has a little butterfly. And so the stuff that's on there, that information that's on there, is to print this one piece of fabric. That's what it's for. It's for the manufacturing process. It is not to identify the line of fabric. It is not to have you, it does not go across a company, to different company. I mean, it's all just about this one piece of fabric. So the dots are there so that during the manufacturing process, you can see that they're lined up, the color's lined up, it's not off shifted, that the color is proper. Those are the number of all the different colors that are used in this particular piece of fabric. So if you have a red and white fabric, you would just see a red dot. That's the way it works. The numbering that's on there, like this one, because it tells you, it is a style number. Whoops. There, it's a style number. That's also for the manufacturer. I have seen one basics company that puts the what's called a SKU, SKU number, which is how you look up. It's the number of that color within that line. So if it's the line of a basic, basic line A, it'll be SKU SKU 15 or 01550. And they might put that number on there so that you can reference it and purchase more of it. That's kind of rare. You don't see that very often. Normally, it's just a sort of tracking for the manufacturer so they sort of know what's going on. So that's basics of that. It's all about how that one piece of fabric is printed, and it's no more than that. And so don't overthink it. A friend that asked wanted to know, well, does it go between fabric lines? No. Could this color be used in a fabric line? Well, if the designer wants to, they can certainly use it again, but it's not required, and it's not something you could easily look for. So it's just used for that one piece of fabric. So I hope that helps. Now, the other question that came along with the salvages was from, Avia Hadis on YouTube here, and she wanted to know if you were not supposed to use it or can use the selvage in a quilt. So there's a couple issues with using the selvage in the quilt. First of all, it's not the same color as the rest of the fabric. So if you're making a square with all this red and you pull that white in, you're going to have a white line. The second thing is because it's for manufacturing, it has all those holes. And that's where it's, hooked onto the machinery. Those holes, they don't really go away. So if you get some of those, they'll be in your patchwork. So those are two things. Mostly it's the color. Why in the world would you want a white stripe when you've got this beautiful red fabric? It just doesn't make any sense. It is more tightly woven, but I would say not as much as in the past. And by manufacturer, it can be entirely different. Now, I'm not sure if you can tell on this one. I'm going to show you. But this one, if you can see, this almost looks like twill. Can you see that? It is not the same texture. So like I can give, like even when you go with the fabric like this, there's not very much give. And there's even less on the selvage. It's super, super tightly woven. Versus this is on the length of the fabric. I mean, this is the width of the fabric. And then of course your bias is super stretchy. But that's the way the edges are. If you want to use them, certainly I'm going to do a whole quilt with selvages. It's not going to be a problem at all. People have been doing it for ages. But to put it in with your regular patchwork, because the fabric is a totally different color, that doesn't make any sense to even want to do it to me. So I hope that helped. You never know. Let me know if that helped. So today is Secret Lives of Color. Red, red, everything red. You're going to get your first red block done. And then I hope you're working on your quilt for Ukraine, getting that all pieced together. And let me know if you enjoyed seeing sort of that process of how I put together. Don't forget to subscribe if you like talking about quilts, if you love quilts, if you love fabric. I'm the place to be. So subscribe, click the little bell. I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.